Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed and we are in the Socrates and Jesus, a Dialogue in Heaven book today. What a book it is. What a book it is. Why is it so good? It breaks down and represents in a single dialogue form the meaning of life, the purpose of, not a part, the whole of humanity. To move from belief-based cognition, making sense of yourself and the world and your place in it through beliefs, which are from other people, and except for a very, very small class, are all fundamentally wrong, false, and harmful, and the cause of human problems. In particular, a class of false beliefs called pathologos, which is a false belief about yourself and the world that you take as obvious or common sense, but is false and diminishes you. There's a class of belief called prejudices. There's a class of belief called supernatural or religious belief that are absurd because there can't be any evidence or proof for it. And then, of course, you have scientific beliefs where they do have evidence and reason. However, without moving from that into understanding, you are trapped. Aristotle represents this kind of belief. So, to move from belief-based cognition into understanding, to follow reason, intelligibility, the structure and paradigm of reality. Good evening. Welcome to the chat. To know yourself, to know the nature of mind, and to know why you're here. Because it's only through understanding that you can solve problems, and it's only through understanding that you can reach wisdom and human excellence. While belief-based thinking and groups bound by belief-based thinking have to reject understanding. They have to reject self-reflection. And as a result, diminishes or negates the significance of yourself, of selves, of your state of being, of your mind, and of rationality. Because to accept beliefs, you also have to swallow the pill that irrationality is truth. Here is some beliefs that can't be proven or have been disproven. Believe it or you go to hell. So you're also swallowing the pill of that which undermines your entire existence. Because you are here to make sense of yourself and the world, to learn, develop, to solve puzzles or problems, and to know thyself. So, that movement of belief-based cognition, which is the cause of human problems and suffering, into understanding-based cognition, which solves problems and can reach your highest goals, is represented by two characters that have the greatest influence on the thinking, of Westerners, really. Jesus and Socrates. Jesus, somebody representing belief, and Socrates representing understanding, or the Hellenic tradition. Now, in both cases, we don't have their own teachings from their own mouths. So we're also exploring a fundamental issue in humanity: interpretation. Who do we listen to when we want to be Christian, or we want to follow the teachings of Jesus? Paul, Mark, his twin brother Thomas, Joseph, James? The Gnostic Gospel of John, or the canonic Gospel of John tries to save Paul? Everyone's different. Everyone has a different account of things. So we are wondering, how are all of the gospel writers or speakers for Jesus, how are they the same and how are they different? And equally so for Socrates. If our job is to develop understanding as a way of being and as a way of functioning, how do we learn from the great one? How do we learn from Socrates? Seeing as he didn't write anything down, we have what we know about him from Plato, and then after Plato, the person who claims to speak for philosophy, Aristotle. How are they the same and how are they different? What is coming to light is the difference seems to be along a continuum. Just as our job as human beings is to go from belief-based cognitive functioning, making sense of our world through belief, to understanding, so too are all of the interpreters of these thinkers responding to the new teaching somewhere along this continuum. Some people, like Paul, completely reject the new teaching and just want to speak about their beliefs, make their own personal beliefs and opinions from childhood universal, and make them the key figurehead like Paul. Some take a little bit of understanding and patch it up into their beliefs. Some try to unify the two. And they're the ones we've been reading about recently. Thomas, Jimmy, James. The Gospels that were burnt by the church but have been recently discovered in the 60s in Egypt. Now, what's also interesting is it seems that the further you are towards the bad side, belief, the less you emphasize the role of understanding. So, the Gospel of Mark has Jesus emphasizing the role of understanding. Gospel of Thomas, the twin. The Gospel of James. And even John, the Gnostic Gospel of John, emphasize understanding over belief. Whereas Paul, the absolute worst, says, screw understanding, just do what I say. Just believe me, y'all. Have faith. You're too stupid to understand for yourself. Just blindly obey us. Me, I mean. So it seems interesting that the further along this continuum towards the bad side is reflected in how much they emphasize understanding. What we're also seeing is the closer towards understanding, the better people are able to make sense of, understand, and explain the pure light of being, or enlightenment, or knowledge, or wisdom. What is that wisdom experience that is within all of us? Because we're seeing Plato, who's further along towards understanding, not reaching Socrates at the top end, able to talk about the brilliant light of being. But then we have James and Thomas referencing its importance, talking about the need to understand parables and allegories from Jesus in his teachings to reach it, and emphasizing the importance of understanding it once you do reach it, but not really talking about it. The description King of Kings isn't too great. considering how much Plato talks about it in the Republic. And of course, we have the story of the Greek tragedy, or the pathetic tragedy of the story of Jesus that involved the arrest, the trial, and the crucifixion from Mark. No resurrection. That gives us a story to show us how important it is to make sense of that light experience of knowledge with understanding and not with belief. Otherwise, you'll just get more wrapped up in your harmful beliefs, which will play out your tragic end. So we're really building a picture. We're really taking these collection of people claiming to speak for either Jesus or Socrates and seeing, hang on a second, it seems to be within the same game. Belief versus understanding in how they respond to a new truth. Are they completely fascist and closed-minded and say, no, my beliefs are only right, screw understanding and reason? I want to hurt people different than me because, as we've been learning, you make with beliefs, you break with beliefs, and you make with understanding. You can't actually have a positive effect through belief. That's why no doctors do surgery based on belief. They all go to college to develop understanding. You can't fly a plane just because you believe you can, positive thinking and all that. Nope. You have to get a license and demonstrate an understanding. So our response to new truth is somewhere between belief and understanding. How well we can represent it, how well we can talk about it. But also, how much do our unsuspected beliefs creep in and influence us, cause us to interpret and not see? So, belief to understanding in terms of interpretation and representation of truth. Belief versus understanding on what kind of an effect we have on ourselves and the world. The further towards belief, the more cruel, the more sadistic, the more harmful. The further towards understanding, the more the word is providence, providential, beneficial, caring, intelligent, rational, ordering. So, benefit to harm is along the same continuum. But also what we're seeing is our goals are reflected along this continuum as well. Are you someone like Paul claiming to speak for Jesus in order to share truth and understanding and benefit like Socrates? Or are you trying to set up a system of power, putting you at the top so you can fuck with people like the church? Take all the money. Play out your false beliefs in the worst ways. It's not only that you believe women are less than men, you make it an institution. You say, God says so. God says women are the cause of sin, so let's oppress women for hundreds or thousands of years. Thanks, church. Great. You like telling other people what to do. So instead of saying, I would like to have slaves, God says we have slaves. Universalizing, projecting your own false beliefs and ignorance as though it's a universal law. Whereas what we've been learning is, if we want our species to survive, we need to insist that every single political and spiritual leader has understanding, the same way we insist every mechanic has understanding, every surgeon has understanding, every pilot has understanding. We need to insist the things being projected as laws of the universe or words from God actually have to be the laws of the universe or logos. We need to align our human laws and our individual souls according to the logos, according to the truth of reality. Now we know that for pilots and surgeons and mechanics. But for some reason, this continuum, we have yet to insist on understanding of the truth of the paradigm of reality for politicians and kings and clergy, politicians and priests. For some reason, they're able to say, you can shove your understanding up your ass. I believe that blacks are less than men. Blacks are less men, or are less than human. I believe that Palestinians are savages. I believe that immigrants need to be abused. What's the understanding, pal? No understanding. I just happen to believe it. And equally so for clergy. What's the understanding, pal? God told me. George Bush. God told me to kill 1 million innocent Iraqi people. God said so, belief. Notice, all of these things justified belief are objectively bad, cruel, sadistic. So we're really seeing it's the same game. How you are able to respond to truth somewhere along this human continuum from belief to understanding. What your goal is your goal to pedestalize your own beliefs and sit in daddy's chair? I have a right to be cruel to others the same way my parents were cruel to me. Or is your goal to benefit the world by sharing truth and understanding that can unify souls and unify our species? So our goal, somewhere along this continuum. So in interpretation, our goal, what kind of effect do we have somewhere along this continuum? Harm to benefit. Are you trying to set up a church like Paul? Or are you trying to present man with what he needs to solve problems, escape the chains of problems and suffering, and escape the prison of reincarnation, like Socrates says that he is sharing his work to do? Interpretation, goal, harm, but also how well you can make sense of the things open on this side, knowledge. How accurate is what we do in metaphysics, which is specifically the study of the aspects of pure being, compared to a slogan, Kingdom of God, King of Kings. Well, a slogan's stupid, doesn't really do anything. Whereas the understanding that we learn in philosophy, you can actually understand what it is, make sense of it, integrate it, reflect on its causes and principles, and its conditions. Make it a way of being, and maybe even transcend it. So, how well we make sense of the things open to this side, also along the continuum. If you're just a believer, I don't know, think light's involved, seems to be the best state of mind, so I'll call it King of Kings. Whereas what we do in philosophy is understand it in depth, necessary for wisdom. Equally so, where we are in the text right now. How well do you understand the cause of man's problems and ignorance? So if we have this pattern developing, let's put it on the board. Which reflects what we have been carrying as a hypothesis, the purpose, the evolution, the development, and the enlightenment of all and the whole of mankind. We get Socrates in the text saying it's not just for a part, it's for the whole. Is belief-based cognitive, making sense of your world, cognitive functioning, making sense of your world through beliefs, which usually come from childhood, before, when it was dangerous to ask questions or we were reliant upon figures for survival, to understanding as a way of being, as a way of being and functioning. What we call love and logos, or philodianoia, if you fancy, love of understanding. And that's been our hypothesis that's been coming to light time and time again. And what we're seeing in this text, that this same continuum reflects how we respond to new truth and rationality, from rejecting the new and being fiercely loyal to the old, to letting go. It's not a blame game. You don't feel guilty that you had false beliefs because it's part of being human. Everyone has them. Letting go of old beliefs. Yeah, your family was racist, so you grew up racist. No joke. It's called being a human being, pal. Don't feel bad about it. Just do your work and change. And fully embracing the new truth and rationality. So that's a continuum that we have been seeing from Paul on one end to question mark on the other end, which us maybe we can do better than all the other people we've read so far, including Plato, who's further along the continuum, Paul right the way back down here. But maybe we can even do better than Plato. Okay, how we respond to new truth and rationality. How much harm or benefit we can do to self and others. So we've been understanding the state of being of a believer and what they can do. Because believers are not open to actual knowledge, they have to replace. Actually, let's do this one first. Before we go to functioning, let's talk about the way of being. The way of being, or state of mind. Now, we've understood that the way of understanding somebody who is a believer is in conflict. They have to accept certain limitations to be a believer. Only Mormon teachings, only Mormon books, no Harry Potter, only marry a Mormon person. That kind of stuff. But they know that if they can leave, they will have unlimitedness or freedom. So they're in conflict. They're supposedly the same as everyone in accepting the same limitations, but you really feel like you're different. Within. You're supposed to be like all the others, but especially when you're on your own, you really feel different and alone and unlike everybody else. You're supposedly becoming part of a greater whole, but you still feel separate. You can't fully unify. So, conflict. So you are in internal conflict as a way of being. But also because you are not, you are just told to believe. There is no development from the cognitive function of belief into understanding, which is necessary for wisdom, knowledge, to apprehend and understand in depth the brilliant light of being, which we all seek. So we all want to be a knower. Hang on. All right, I'm back. My computer was going slow. I had to close some tabs. So, as we've been seeing, as all souls seek the state of knowing reality and as the paradigm of beauty and justice, because, hey, newsflash, everyone doesn't like bad things. We seek justice. Everyone gets mad when the referee makes the bad call on the sports games. Everyone gets mad when somebody kicks a puppy. We all seek beautiful things. Even the dumbest person likes a beautiful body and seeks it. Also, we all want what's good for us. We all want to eat a good sandwich and not a rotten sandwich. We spend our activities doing things that we think will make us better. And we also do those things because we think that will make us happier. So, all of these things we all seek, all of these things are eidos, or the aspects of pure being. Therefore, we need to demand apprehension of being as well as an understanding of its intelligible parts for every leader. So what? Well, if beliefs block specifically ousia and logos, no reflection on yourself in belief, you just do as you're told, and no reflection on causes and even with scientific beliefs. No self-reflection on your own state of consciousness or the causes and conditions or axioms for science. Nope. And therefore no intelligibility. It's just evidence and reason without the higher aspect of the logos, even in scientific beliefs. Therefore, believers are cut off from what we seek. And as belief doesn't have a feeling, because it's just a belief, you're believing someone, we have to compensate for that feeling of knowingness to tell us that we are a good believer. And as providence is also connected to understanding and knowledge, you can't do anything good. Goodness, benefit, these are aspects of being. So they are addicted to the feeling of killing non-believers, trying to convert others into their sickness, creating conflict, creating drama, insulting people, telling people they're going to hell. They can't build the sandcastle, so the only effect on the world they can have is breaking it, and that feeling of enjoying the destruction or crushing of other people is sadism. So they have internal conflict and they have an addiction to harm, which is a compensation for knowledge, which is not open to them. Compensation for knowledge as a state, and that's knowledge, state of being or state of mind. So that's called formally sadism. Ever wondered why cruelty is the point for all of these Republicans and politicians and clergy? You don't have to oppress women. You don't have to justify genocide. Why do they want to so badly? Sadism. We can understand why people are so sadistic. They are in internal conflict and addicted to the compensation for a knowledge state of what they can do, because they are blocked from knowledge, because they haven't yet evolved into understanding. So, the way of being or the state of mind. Now, this is the question. Our question is, this is a big question. What is the state of mind of understanding? That's our question for the text that we're carrying. So if we've understood the state of mind or state of being of question for our reading, if we've understood for belief, our job is to, and as we read, what's the state of being or state of mind of understanding? Philodianoia. Now we have some clues. It's a shadow of something higher, question mark. Also, we have clues. That shadow is a kind of openness, freedom, clarity, and pureness, which is curious because this does not reflect the description of knowing or wisdom. It's not clear. It's everything. Wisdom is. Knowledge is. Bliss. All of those positive things that we're talking about. So same continuum. From rejecting the new and loyalty to the old, as we respond to new learning, the more people who are not able to learn are also the more people who are in that internal state of conflict. They are messed up. Now, that's how we are. It's our state of being. We've also been looking at functioning. How do we function? Functioning. and benefit. We also have a name for a special kind of benefit called providence, divine benefit. Harm, and we also have things like, we've been using words like breaking or killing or genocide, harm, destruction. Which is interesting because the internal conflict becomes an external conflict as well. They enjoy or sadism. So you want to be someone who does good in the world? Evolve. Become a understanding person. Now we've also got some clues, because while the state of mind or way of being, the som and the wob, is in time, our functioning in this state of being is timeless. Is it timeless? Let's get the word exactly from the text. In time. The soul's activity is in time. Its existence is timeless or eternal. Okay, so see, right opinions. You had a question. We're collecting the right opinions. Just to review what we did last time. The learning process is along these cognitive functions. You start in pathologos ignorance. That's furthest away on that continuum. False beliefs you take for granted. They seem like common sense. You can't imagine anything different from it. And you might even get irritated when someone challenges it, because it rejects reason and evidence. It rejects everything in human development, cognition, benefit, internally, harmonizing your soul and your functioning externally as well. So you can't even be in the game, but if we can drop that, recognize it enough to say, I'm going to take some notes and promise I will deal with it later in dream analysis and midwifery, but for now we're reading. Don't ignore it. It's not like Eastern stuff without logos, Eastern spirituality. Let your thoughts float away like a cloud. Or Western psychology, which is behavioral. Give yourself a cookie if you ignore your thoughts. Use physical rewards and punishments. No. They're there for a reason. The thoughts that we have to block our development are there for a reason. It's not a blame game. It's not a manipulate through torturing nature, Western cognitive behavioral approach. It's not a passive, let it fly away like a cloud, nonsense Eastern approach. It's recognizing the providence in our distracting thoughts and feeling states so that we write them down. Just as we collect right opinions as we read, you collect the false opinions. So we can actually go this way. Here's Aristotle with his materialist explanation, no participation. It's just potential within physical seeds. Aristotle likes flowers. If we go this way, we collect our false opinions. And then the understanding we apply it to is understanding which is understanding is the use of those right opinions, but you organize them into the dialectic. Philosophical midwifery. The dialectic. And then what comes as a result is freedom from the false shadow of reality or knowledge. False shadow belief of reality. So just as our progression leads to knowledge of reality or nous, so too is there a false shadow or belief. Let's move these questions over. And then the next stage, which on this side is from knowledge to excellence, knowing the self. Ultimately too, on this side, there is its final step. A purification. So here's our freedom and purity that we have been talking about before, when we were talking about the what's the state of being of understanding. It's not bliss of enlightenment experience, it's a freedom and purity and ideal functioning of the mind. So a purification of, so freedom from and a purification from our false beliefs, and as a result let's put belief before shadow, because shadow's the metaphor. So just as we see what are we doing? As this whole thing in both directions is an organization of your thinking according to the organization of thinking itself, the logos. That structure is the dialectic. So too do we want to practice it. So the dialectic is definition, the subject in relation to itself. How does it function, subject to others? Division, how does that functioning affect others? And conclusion, how do you synthesize that together into a single idea that you can learn about, and then take it back to the start, synthesis and analysis, to come to a new insight about your definition. So therefore, you unfold out into creation and reflection, and then you end up in a new definition higher than when you started. So it's an evolving upwards. It's learning. So too, let's start with the definition of this stage, a freedom from false beliefs, and use as an example or a demonstration the metaphor, shadow. See, that simple, by the way, it's not about getting it right first time, and it's not about being some kind of jerk that comes in and says, oh, you weren't right first time, now I get to punish you, like some toe-headed racist ice person. Disgusting. No. It's about reflecting on ourselves, Usia, and perfecting ourselves. Improving, learning, growth. No room for learning or growth in punishment. So any government or leader or religion, sin, devil, hell that has punishment, fucked. By definition, it's anti-human, anti-learning, and false in principle, rationally, and harmful in its functioning. By definition, irrational and bad. In its functioning, harmful. Its division causes harm within individuals and causes a world in constant conflict, leading to our eventual conclusion, extinction, and a suffering person. So again, the dialectic in our thinking. I repeat this stuff a lot, but it's worth repeating to counteract how often all the other stuff is said in our world currently. Purification of the image. Now, I was going to say false image, but what we've been reading is there is no image of the self. So we can just say purification of image of self. Pathologos. The sick logos. So it's the same processes in either direction. Or if you're into music, you might recognize one movement in one direction, circle of fifths. Same kind of thing in the other direction, circle of fourths. Major and minor. See? So what we are doing now is, in this reflection on what we've been reading, we have been carrying these questions and we've written them on the board a few times. I need to get some glue be gone because I got droplets of glue on my little drawing pad. Collecting these quotes, organizing them in the way we just described, definition, demonstration, division, conclusion, but also in these diagrams, and also talking about it. So within understanding, we've got the dialectic, we've got diagrams, we've also got dialogue, dialectic, diagrams, dialogue. I'm going to write that. That's pretty neat. Under here we have the clues for the feeling state of what that state of being is. A shadow of something, openness, freedom, clarity, purity. Interesting, because this has a result of freedom from false beliefs, different from the bliss of knowing eternity, pure light. And this has the purification of the image of self, whereas this has the good or the encounter, I think the word was. It's not an experience, it's some sort of encounter. And state is also a state, so you can, in that knowledge, you can't be driving your car because you'll crash. You can't eat a hamburger because you won't know where to stop eating and you'll eat your hand. That's a joke, but it's a, I don't know, it's a joke made for a reason. So let's get rid of this. We have the knowledge of nous. We have the encounter and state of the good, the one, or the self. And this addition of logos and understanding we called the developing of human excellence. So when we have that experience through our progression through love and rational intimacy, good relationships, we can perfect in the experience of pure beauty, but we have to, from that state, start developing true human excellence, which seems to culminate in that experience there. To be as immortal and a friend of the gods as any human can be, to quote the text. So, while this is the bliss of pure knowledge, and this is some sort of encounter and state of the actual self, so too on the other side, the minor side, a freedom from. So what was bliss is now opposite. What was all of the qualities all at once in knowledge, no qualities. Freedom from the false beliefs of reality or knowledge. Let's move shadow down actually. And likewise, the ultimate goal of knowing the self on one end has its reflection in a purification of something. So we drop our false beliefs of reality as we drop our image of the self, a purification and a freedom, helping our state of openness to have a question, like the ones we're doing now, to collect the right opinions, which we're doing now, arrange them in, let's arrange them in the dialectic, in diagrams, and in dialogues with our friends over coffee. Cheers. Supercharged by dream analysis, by the way. Opening ourselves, which is the condition for insight or knowledge or enlightenment. Enlightenment, that's the penultimate enlightenment, by the way, because from that we go on to add understanding and reflection on it. If we don't, we have the pathetic tale of the tragic Jesus character in Mark. Make sure you understand it. From that, you can develop true excellence, and that to be an immortal and a friend of the gods, but also the final state of, let's give it a better color, encounter and state of the self. I'm going to put self above the one and the good here, because see, the thing with one and good, it's a descriptor. Because you have different beliefs about the self and ideas, images about the self. And the functioning of the self, the ideal functioning being either ousia and knowledge or in time understanding. It's our ideal human functioning. But to describe the version of self or the kind of self we're talking about here, Socrates says it's the good, or the one. So all of the aspects that we study in knowledge, which is metaphysics, are all one. One idea of beauty, one idea of goodness, separated from the other ideas, which are all one. So one is a fundamental, it's even more fundamental than reality, because reality can be understood as one. But also all of those things here are beneficial, providential, or good. It's good to know justice. It's good to know beauty. It's good to know goodness and have goodness and be nourished by goodness. So the idea of one and good are more fundamental ideas than even its highest expression in reality, or the brilliant light of being. But also we say all of these things have their own selfhood, beauty itself, justice itself, etc. Whoops. Meaning, move this over a little bit. Meaning the idea of self has to also be primary. So in terms of these words, good, one, self is the highest. So Socrates uses, and Parmenides also, of the, not a self, just as knowledge wasn't a mind or a soul, it's the mind. So Parmenides uses the idea of one. What kind of self is the self? Thyself, of know thyself? It's a pure one. That's the first hypothesis, the one self. So in a dialectic, the two ideas he uses is self and the other, well, self itself, self to other. And so you need two ideas, one representing the subject or self, one representing another that you rub it against to define your term. S is self, other is one. So he describes a pure one and says, by the way, all of these descriptions of a pure one you can use as a way of understanding what thyself is. That's the first hypothesis of Parmenides. Equally, in the Republic, a similar thing happens, not as explicitly, but it's pointed to as knowledge being the beholding or idea, eidos, the idea of the good, whereas this is the good self, or the good itself. So an encounter or state of the self, the one self or the good self, just as on this side you have a freedom or a purification of the image of the self. So you're getting purification and freedom, allowing you to be free of your problems, but also have the freedom to progress in this direction. See, same in both directions. Isn't that neat? Wow.
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 Wow. Wow. Wow. Wow. Wow. Wow. Wow.
That's what we're doing here. We are having dialogues with our chat, and I have so many hundreds of thousands of chat viewers that I can't talk to you each individually. I'm kind of speaking generally, but really I'm talking to you. I mean, that's not a joke. It's personal and universal. That's one of the great profundities of philosophy. It's specifically relevant to every person and their level of development because of its scope, because it has scope over everyone. Everyone is a self. Everyone seeks goodness. Everyone participates in this. Everyone has false beliefs that block them, etc. So it's universal or general while also being specifically relevant. And by the way, that was said in the text. Everyone benefits by listening in on these dialogues, because human problems, there's only a finite list. Just as knowledge is finite, knowable. But there's a theme that runs through all of them that applies to everyone. Same too in the other direction. self. So that's what we're doing now. Diagrams, dialectic, and dialogues, which is the understanding state, which is the preparation for, well, as we do it, we can also light a, what's the expression from the book? Light a stick of incense, which means reflect on yourself as you're doing it. What's it feel like to be, because you're in the state of being, that's our evolutionary stage. The purpose. What's it feel like? And you can ask some questions like, is there a self-image? If you can participate in these kinds of dialectics, diagrams, and dialogues, and there's no image of the self, are you somehow, while functioning in time, are you somehow timeless? Bringing us back to here. Where were we? Yeah. While functioning in time, diagrams, dialectic, dialogues, either about our false opinions in midwifery or right opinions in reading or philosophy, our state of mind or way of being, is oops, wrong color. What color? This color. Our way of being or state of mind is timeless, or eternal. From the text, our functioning is in time. And we've also seen if it brings a benefit, it is an art. Artful. And it may have something to do with excellence. Question mark. Artful gets a question mark because we haven't seen that in the text yet. Excellence seems to be inferred, but let's keep it as a question. Oh, which means also our state of being, state of mind or way of being, that previous section has to include timeless and eternal. Add that in there too. So our evolution is from belief-based cognitive functioning to understanding as a way of being and functioning, love and logos, philodainoia. For everyone, it's the meaning of life. Isn't that neat? Isn't that neat? By the way, if we don't do our job, we stay as savages. Actually, we could actually put here, let's add a metaphor for what we've been using. Move all these down. Why did I miss that? Try that again. Let's move all these down. And then move this down. Here. Then this down here. We have that metaphor that we've been using. which is color, this one. Savages or zombies from caveman times to sages. Or members of the true human race. Human race. The savages or zombies to savages to sages, zombies to humans. From caveman times to our evolution. In harmony, from cavemen to in harmony with cosmos. From zombies to humans, from savages to sages, from caveman times to becoming in harmony with the cosmos. And saving our species from the inevitable fate of extinction that awaits us if we continue the way we're going on that side of the spectrum. So in the text we're seeing that it's the same, it seems to be the same continuum for how we respond to new truth and rationality, whether it be the way Jimmy, John, Thomas the twin engine, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John and Paul respond to Jesus and his teaching and way of life, or whether it's how Plato and Aristotle responded to Socrates. Either way, how we respond to truth and rationality seems to be on that continuum as well. Our way of being or state of mind, internal conflict, addiction to harm as a compensation for knowledge, or sadism. So internal conflict and sadism on one side, and our question of reading, what's the state of mind or way of being? It's timeless, it's eternal, it's a shadow of something higher. There's a freedom, openness, clarity, and pureness. But still wondering what exactly can we narrow down that state as? But our functioning, people who are believers, can only do harm and can only destroy. Funny that. Isn't that interesting? Why are humans so destructive? Oh, one word, belief. But that seems to be too simple of an answer. One word. This continuum explains why, even though it's a true and simple answer, it's not working. Or this explains the confusion. When you hear that, your reaction is likely going to be somewhere along there. Very few people are going to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That would be all the way on this side. Humans are going to be somewhere along this continuum. Oh, surely not all beliefs. Surely not the scientific beliefs we use to make nuclear weapons and hand grenades. Surely not my religious beliefs. Surely religious beliefs are just how we learn ethics and morality, right? I mean, no one else is teaching true ethics and morality except for this channel. Except for Socrates, Diotima, Parmenides. Here, Grimes. Oh, but surely not my simple beliefs of how to raise a kid. Don't I have a right? You can't tell me how to raise my kids. I'm a parent, I get to do whatever the fuck I want. I'm a billionaire, I get to do whatever the fuck I want. I'm Pope, I get to, etc., etc. So even though, what's the cause of conflict and destruction and harm in our world? You get belief-based cognition from caveman days. Simple. What's the remedy? This. Understanding. Functioning a way of being. to solve problems on this side, and the same pattern on the other side to reach excellence. Simple. But that's not the issue of the book. What's simple is one thing. How do we communicate it with our fellow man, and how do we ourselves respond to it most justly is the issue. Not my dad, not my mum, not my preacher, not my imam, not my radical evangelistic pastor who does a skateboard and does electric guitar. Surely not him. He's radical. He's even got a tattoo of Jesus. Pretty badass. That's going to be our response. One version of that. That's why we're here. We all get a pathologos. We all have to master both sides of understanding, both sides of the dialectic. Therefore, conflict, belief. Internally and functioning. Okay, also we're saying one of the questions has been in the text that we're reading. Go back to blue. That's kind of a greeny blue. Oh, this blue. Yeah, that's better. How do we grasp and understand? Let's put it somewhere else. How do we grasp well, skate and guitar? I reckon this looks like somebody who attained enlightenment. I mean, Socrates was nice and all, but he could not play guitar. I know. Of all of the scholarly research done into Socratic philosophy I've seen at the universities, the biggest critique has been, does not shred. Guitar solos, uninspired. Therefore, reject Socrates. That's what I learned at college. Does not shred. I play guitar. I do skateboarding. I don't shred. How well do we grasp and understand knowledge and know thyself, or enlightenment, or enlightenment and excellence? How well do people grasp and understand knowledge and know thyself? How about, let's just say, yeah, that's fine. We'll keep know thyself. We've got Paul who doesn't. No. Believers have no experience. Or partial at best, and they have no understanding, or in the story of Jesus and Mark, more firmly entrenched in false beliefs at worst. So, no experience from people like Mark of the Brilliant Light of Being, not talked about. Or, as we've seen in the text, partial, like near-death experiences. People who have a near-death experience or a mushroom experience or a traumatic experience or some sort of other experience that can open mind temporarily to, I mean, it's always temporarily, but open mind to an experience of knowledge. They might think, oh, well, I know everything now. And then they write a book about how they saw Jesus, or how they are the chosen one, or they've seen everything, or now they're enlightened, without recognizing that it's a partial experience. No experience or partial, and no understanding or more firmly entrenched in prior beliefs at worst. And that's the story of Jesus and Mark. Whereas people seem to be on this list. Jimmy, James, and Thomas the Twin Engine recognize it, recognize the need for understanding, recognize the need to grasp knowledge, and even some of them say you have to also go on to know thyself, linking, because their job is to unify the Hellenic philosophy, know thyself, with their old beliefs, religious beliefs. But they can't talk about it. They don't understand it. They don't have a language. They borrow some language of the Hellenics, but King of Kings, that's not a very good description of wisdom. So somewhere along this continuum, Paul rejects it completely, no experience. Mark talks about it, but doesn't talk about doesn't give much of an understanding of it. Warns us about going in this direction. Jimmy, John, and Thomas the Twin Engine, a little bit, but not really. Even Plato talks about knowledge and the need to go on to know the cause of it, and also references the significance of dreams, but doesn't really go into a description of that either. So we have to go from the Republic to the Parmenides. So it's a continuum, even for Plato. To full experience of knowledge, or the brilliant light. Zoom in a bit. Of pure being with deep understanding of it, which is wisdom, and development from that state to true excellence, which is from the Symposium, which would be the functioning to know, let's say, and to, the word was, you experience knowledge, but you encounter. Is it encounter? Let me just make sure from the text. Encounter. That's not how you spell it. Encounter. Did it again. Encounter. Encounter. Encounter with beauty itself. That's not what we're after. Encounter. Maybe it's the wrong word. Here we go. While those have experienced divine luminosity and those who have encountered the good itself, if one has an encounter with the state of the one itself, it would be impossible to believe that the good or the one is Creator God, because the Creator God has to exist, has to have a power, has to have an activity. Therefore, it's not one. There's many, many things. Therefore, the idea of God, especially any sort of Creator God like you get from religions, can't be the highest. So we don't talk in terms of God, we talk in terms of the self as the highest in philosophy. So, on this side of the continuum, you have a full experience of knowledge, or the brilliant light of pure being. If you have a deep understanding of it, you've got wisdom, and the development from that to true excellence, which is and to encounter the self. How about state of self? To state of self. So it wouldn't be a thing that you encounter, it would be a state of self. Or running out of space, put it here. Or put underneath. Or the good, or the one, and we say, know thyself. And last time we read that without this know thyself, you do not have philosophy, and you have an empty, hollow system. In the Republic, he even talks about the development of the studies of the philosopher king, which ultimately prepare your mind for insight into knowledge or awakening usia. And he says any art eventually leads to that. Anything you're interested in studying will eventually, you have to ask the question, well, hang on a second. If I want to do a beautiful painting, what's beauty itself? In other words, if any system void of the question of knowing thyself is void of, if any system that's void doesn't have know thyself in it, is an empty, hollow system, then add it. Make everything you do about knowing the self. And in the Republic, Socrates says, that's what it'll end up being anyway, if you keep going. That's how we grasp and understand knowledge and knowing thyself. From no experience or partial experience at best, like a near-death experience or a mushroom trip, and no understanding, or at worst, more firmly entrenched in your prior beliefs, to the other side of the spectrum, a full experience of knowledge, the brilliant light of being, a deep understanding of it, giving you wisdom, and then from that to develop to true excellence from the symposium, and to encounter the state of self, or the good, or the one, or know thyself. So same continuum, from belief to understanding. Savages to sages, zombies to humans, caveman times to harmony with the cosmos. Caveman times and inevitable extinction. Put that in there. Cavemans can't survive with nuclear weapons, pal. caveman times and inevitable extinction, to sages, human race in harmony with the cosmos, a human flourishing. They live in a utopia. I don't believe in utopias, I've heard people say. But now we can turn around and say, of course. The simple fact you used the word belief points to a cognitive function where there is no such thing as utopia because you can't. Zombies can't have a utopia. I don't believe in utopia. Good. It's not an object of belief, pal. It's something you need to drop beliefs to participate in and develop an understanding of. I don't believe in utopia. Good. Now change the word belief. To what? Understanding. I don't understand utopia. That's right. You don't understand utopia. That's not a problem with utopia. That's a problem with you, pal. That's a you problem. I don't believe. Yeah, that's a you problem. See how it changes? People who say, I don't believe, they imply that their stupid fucking beliefs are truths. Well, I don't believe in facts, says a MAGA. I don't believe in fake news, says some close-minded racist jerk. It implies that because they don't believe it, then it's somehow true. Beliefs are not about truth, you idiot. Understanding is. Beliefs are about your opinions from childhood and caveman times, your fate, your problems. But see how you just changed that one word? I don't understand facts. That's the truth. I don't believe in facts means that there's no such thing. And those idiots can become kings and clergy. Because we don't yet demand, we don't have an understanding of this diagram and demand it. Changing that word, I don't understand facts. Exactly. One word shift, belief to understanding. Just like this, belief on one side, understanding. Shift it in your language. I don't understand facts. Exactly. You don't understand facts, but that's not a statement about reality. That's a statement about you. Because we all know people who don't understand things need to read, need to learn, need to reflect, need to have dialogues, dialectics, and diagrams. Yes, you don't understand facts. Therefore, you shouldn't be a fucking politician or a priest or imam or rabbi or whatever the Scientologists call their Thetan level 84 or whatever the fuck. Yes, every belief-based system has their bullshit to rank people. But again, it's caveman shit. It's extinction shit. It's rejecting the new. It's internal conflict and sadism. It's functioning in a harmful and destructive way. It's an inability to have any experience of knowledge or wisdom. Yes, that's what beliefs means. Okay, so now we're in this part of the text where we are up to not just how do we grasp and understand knowledge and knowing thyself, or enlightenment and excellence, or this side of the cognitive development continuum, but this side, how well do you make sense of man's ignorance? Pathologos ignorance, false opinions that you have to apply understanding of dialectic to get freedom of false beliefs, which are the cause of problems. How well do you understand human problems and ignorance? That's what we're reading. We've got the Gnostic John saying it's forgetfulness and passions. We've got Thomas the Twin Engine saying it's sexual desires and indulging in sexual expressions of bodily love and beauty and intimacy. Of course, Socrates says that's garbage. And the fact that he's saying that, me as someone who had a kid at 70 and had lots of kids, I recognize that you don't know thyself and you don't have actual wisdom. If you're making those statements, Thomas, the twin, that's where we are in the text. How do we, and our question is it the same continuum, belief to understanding, that's it, for, comes after blue, dirty yellow, for, yeah, how do we understand and solve, understand and explain cause of human ignorance and problems. Now, it's starting to become obvious, isn't it? Because even these categories, they have the word understand in them. And it seems like now we're actually saying, well, not only do you have to understand it, you have to explain it. So explaining is also tied to understanding. So to be able to explain and understand means you're already in the understanding side of things. Equally, how well do people who have beliefs make sense of human problems? The beliefs are immigrants. The cause of problems are immigrants. They're taking their gerbs. They're taking their gerbs. Oh no, it's the savage Palestinians. We need to starve all their children to death. It's a belief. Jewish Zionist belief. The belief is, oh, poor people suck. That's a capitalist belief, sure. They deserve it. If they have integrity like us rich people, they would have had all the billions of dollars I got from daddy. And as capitalism is just a scam to further extract wealth from the many into the few, my daddy's $10 billion is now my $100 billion because I'm so great, not because money accrues interest for some stupid reason. By the way, there have been societies who worked opposite. You didn't gain interest by hoarding wealth. Money was taken from you. Tax wealth, not work. And it worked very, very well, by the way. So, yeah, beliefs, racist beliefs, sexist beliefs, genocidal beliefs. That's how I choose to solve problems, and not one has ever worked, and they all function to cause harm and destruction. And cause conflict and suffering. That's what beliefs do. The next time some religious person says you should believe in Jesus, say, fuck no. Have you seen this diagram? Beliefs caused conflict and suffering and destruction and harm. You need to drop your bullshit beliefs you got from your parents. Get your head in a book, son. Don't need to read a book. I didn't even read the Bible. Yeah, no shit. If you read the Bible, you'd be a Socratic. You'd be doing this. Realizing that every single person in the Bible and the Gnostic Gospels that we found in Egypt all have a different fucking story. And by the way, even the stories that you're told in church, like Adam and Eve, that's not in the book. Just made up. The resurrection, no Easter in the book. Eve tricked Adam into eating an apple. That's not in there. Even in the modern books. Just been lied to. Learn to read. That's what we're doing here, learning to read. So, how do you understand and explain the cause of human problems? Maybe under this we'll have another category for how well do you address and remove human problems. But let's start with this one. I mean, they'd be connected, wouldn't they? You wouldn't be able to fix an engine if you don't understand it. So how do you fix a human soul? without understanding and just belief. That's where we are. Now, so far, it seems like an understanding of the pathologos, unsuspected false beliefs, from childhood, based on a shadow, distorted shadow of reality and virtue. And then on this side we have all sorts of stupid garbage. And for example, Thomas saying sexual passions. All sorts of stupid garbage on one side, and understanding of the pathologos, unsuspected false beliefs from child based on a distorted shadow of reality and virtue. Interesting. Now we can also say, given that understanding of knowledge, enlightenment, excellence, and we can also throw in wisdom, because that's the union of grasping and understanding. So add and wisdom. So that wisdom and our ability to understand and explain the cause of human problems would then come together. And how do you function with both of those to be a dialectician or midwife on one direction here? How do you best facilitate these dialectics, diagrams, and dialogues to facilitate people in helping them reach their excellence, which would be moving along that continuum? All of those different categories are on the same continuum. And how well do you hear? So here we have the understanding. So as we are reading, it's okay to have a question. It's okay to collect quotes that relate to the question, but then there's a kind of skill involved here. This is a kind of skill. We have to also learn the skill. We have to learn the structure of the dialectic. A kind of skill. And there's a kind of skill involved in leading conversations. Can you use the dialectic to make sure people follow step by step? Can you judge the questions and answers, the answer you're given to your questions, to see if they make sense skillfully? Can you avoid tangents with skill? Can you bring people back with skill and even charm? Can you use humor and grace and your attractiveness if you happen to be a hottie? And I've seen hotties who love understanding too. Can you use that too? Skillfully navigate these dialectics, diagrams, and dialogues. Equally so, there is a skill to midwifery, which happens to be the same kind of thing, the same dialectic, the same keeping you on track, the same guiding people through questions and answers, but also, because of this book, also guiding people through their reactions to understanding, whether it be their own understanding or something new that they're reading. They're going to have these reactions. That's this book. It's also a skill. It's not just the skill of facilitating truth, but guiding people through their reactions to truth, which will also reflect their development. So is there a skill in freedom from false beliefs and the purification of the image of the self, as there is a skill in organizing the clues. Like, you have to, Sherlock Holmes, you have to have a question. Who killed the mayor? Or who kidnapped the mayor's dog? Then you have to go to the crime scene and collect the things, but then you have to go back to Baker Street and organize it. That's what makes Sherlock Holmes so great, his ability to organize and make deductions and inferences, possible hypotheses. It was Moriarty who kidnapped the mayor's dog. Moriarty, I say. Requires a skill. And you can start by going along and being a, who's Sherlock Holmes's buddy? Who also lives with him in Baker Street? Watson. Yes, very good, says Watson. I'm still learning this skill, but I can benefit by your dialogues. I can also create insight. Watson. Very good. But that's the skill. That's what makes you a master detective, or a master dialectician, or master midwife. So the next category we could infer might be the same continuum, but it might even be too obvious to write down, because how well you can grasp and understand knowledge, knowing thyself, enlightenment, excellence, and wisdom, and how well you can understand and explain the cause of human problems and ignorance, I mean, it would be how well you can function with it, wouldn't it? So we could make another one, but how well you can do it, but let's keep that one open. Actually, seeing as it's a question, let's carry it, because having that question, is that going to come up in the text? Helps us in our reading. So we'll take it. Why not? We've got a big inventory. We've got a big question sack full of questions and a big if sack full of hypotheses. So if somebody comes along and says, hey, Reeve, what makes you so smart? Say, I got a big sack. Meaning you've got these sacks full of questions and ifs or hypotheses in your inventory that you carry with you as you live, as you read, as you interact with the world and other people. I got a big sack. This is what you'll say. And everyone will know what it means. And then everyone will cheer. This is you at the coffee shop when you've announced to everyone that you're so smart because you've got a big sack. Okay, green. So we'll put it in. Question. How well one can solve problems and ignorance? Whoops. Let's zoom in a little bit. How well one can solve human problems and remove ignorance, remove or free from ignorance. Now that does seem like something got here already, isn't it? Functioning. How well do we function? How well do we benefit providentially? Our functioning is in time, artfully, excellently, whereas people who are believers can only do harm, destruction, and cause conflict and suffering when they are in their beliefs. Remember, this is also a continuum. You're not always a believer. You might be like chanting Kumbaya at your Scientology, whatever, but then you might go to your job as a mechanic and use understanding and actually benefit cars. But to the extent where we are in caveman belief-based thinking, in particular how we relate to selves and reality and logos or understanding, causes harm, conflict, suffering, and destruction. So it kind of does seem like excellence, artfulness, benefit does seem to solving problems, but we'll keep it. We'll keep it as we continue to read. Okay, so let's keep these questions. And what questions? Let's review quick. Just so we have them in our head. This new one. Can we understand all of these different things within the same continuum of the movement from belief-based cognitive functioning to understanding as a way of being, love and logos, and functioning? Savages to sages, from responding to truth and understanding well, a better way of being or state of mind, a better functioning, a better grasp of knowledge, wisdom, knowing thyself, enlightenment and excellence, and a better understanding of the cause of human problems and ignorance. Can we recognize them as the same continuum? And in the text, can we see the stages of this continuum and all of these categories represented by the key figures in the text? Paul, Mark, Jimmy, James, Thomas the Twin Engine, Plato, Aristotle, they're the big players so far. Okay, that's a question. We have other questions from last time we wrote on the board. I might as well read it out. How do we do dream analysis? Oh, we should put dreams in there as well. Let's do that. How well do we recognize the significance of dream analysis? Because so far there's only one dude. Move this down. No, not that color. Let's go purple. Can we say on the same continuum, seeing the wait, what's going on with my pen? Seeing the value of dream analysis. So far we've got sock on this side. And we've got Plato only as a reference. Plato reference. It. And we have also Homer. Already we've got Homer and the story of Achilles going through dream analysis and midwifery. And then we have Homer referencing it. And it seems like all the other jabronis on this side. We'll have over here jabronis. Jabronis are people who do not see the significance of dream analysis. So, another question. Back to our questions. How do we do dream analysis if it's so goddamn important? What's the language of dreams? How exactly does participation work? That's kind of a... I don't know. It's a question given by the text. Socrates says there's a hole even in my teaching. If all beautiful things come from beauty itself, how does that work? If our job is to participate from a mind to the mind, how exactly? He says it just is, which is the way of divine things. So we'll carry it because it was given to us in the text. What's the state of mind of understanding is a big one. What's the state of the oneself? And is one a shadow of the other? Or do they unify? Why is it difficult to share all this? Or another way of saying that question, how come Asmongold and Hassan Piker have 100,000 viewers and I only have Reeve? I get less than an average of 3 at the moment. I know that because I need an average of 3 every stream to become a Twitch affiliate. And what are all the different responses to truth or rationality humans have? Can we arrange them in a hierarchy? And can we master that hierarchy to artfully benefit people by guiding them through that stages of different reactions to truth? Oh, you're a fundamental racist or a fundamentalist MAGA or a fundamentalist whatever belief. Oh, it's okay. That's just stage 1. Now let's go to stage 2. Take a piece. Let's go to stage 3. Denying the deniers, Mark. Let's go to stage 4. You probably want to try and synthesize your new understanding within the context of your old beliefs. It's not great, but that's okay. You're growing. We're learning. You are a little chicken growing into become a great cock. That means a fully grown rooster. Don't tell Thomas that though. He will freak out. Okay, you sit there. So those are the questions, along with our new question from today's reflection, that of the hierarchy, and that of how do these people, how do they understand problems? And also, as we look at all the different ways people understand problems, can we see our hypothesis, what we were given, we were given these 3 stages of cognitive development, reflecting the 4 stages of cognitive development that you might recognize as the divided line, representing the stages of beauty, love and logos that you can become aware of and move through in your spiritual evolution to beauty itself, from which you develop true excellence to reach the functioning and state of the oneself. So we were given this in the text. Part of reading is also pushing the implications, going back to Baker Street and developing your own hypotheses. From this to this, and carrying it in your mighty sack. So our hypothesis is, well, it seems like the solving of problems is the exact same 4 or 5 stages, but inverted. A recognition that you have a pathologos problem, or a question, not a question of truth, but a question of, why do I keep getting in my problems? Why do I keep getting blocked? Why does that voice come in and say, don't listen to Jed's stream, go listen to Asmongold's stream? That's a bad voice. Never listen to that voice. Question about it. As you continue to read, you can gather your false opinions. All of those voices, states of minds, images, echoes from the past, these are all clues that you then take back to Baker Street and apply the same dialectic, the skill, but it's midwifery, resulting in not an experience of knowing everything, but a freedom from, not an experience of ultimate reality, but a freedom from the false beliefs about reality you've been carrying with you that's been causing those problems. Then ultimately, as you continue to free yourself from that, you will recognize, holy crap, every single stage of learning and freedom that I've been gaining, what is the precursor to my ability to reach every new step in my development, every new goal that I had been formerly blocked from, what precedes all of that seems to be a removal of an image of the self. Not positive thinking, not replacing a negative image with a positive one. It just seems to be a letting go. In other words, you recognize, holy shit, I'm going through a purification of what's false, which is neat because you can't be an image. By definition, all of the descriptions of what the self is, true excellence, is beyond not only images, it's beyond experience. You can have an experience of an image, that's kind of lame. You can have an experience of a belief, bleh. You can have an experience of ultimate reality. That's not good enough. That's not even the self. Don't get stuck there. So that's one of our puzzles. How do we talk about that which is beyond knowing? How do we know thyself if it's beyond knowing? How do we talk about something that's beyond experience? Well, we're using the word encounter because we got it from the text. So that's our hypothesis. The same 5 stages of cognitive development are reflected symmetrically in the other direction to remove problems. Let's carry these as we read. Okay. Now, last time we got up to the question, what does Paul say about this? Let's start here. Go a little bit back. Socrates. I would need to know more about how the followers of James carried out the practice, because it does have echoes back to the importance of remembering. Knowledge is a thing that we knew before, that's why we remember it in Enlightenment, penultimate Enlightenment, but also possibly dream work. It looks like he adds to the work and retains some of the core beliefs. From this, I conclude that he is another Gnostic gospel writer who rejects Paul. Hooray. However, while I say this, I am not at all sure I can say what the core saving belief of Paul's teaching is. Jesus. The saving belief that Paul taught was essential for the spiritual life, that he thought was essential for the spiritual life, was his idea of justification by faith. He says that since the Son of God died for your sins, it is in your faith, belief, blind belief, stupid belief, irrational belief, that your sins will be forgiven. Stay as a savage, as a zombie. That's good. Why, Paul? Because we killed this dude. That seems stupid. Shut up or you go to hell, says Paul. Oh my God, how fucking stupid is all this? Anyway, let's keep reading. It's in your faith that your sins will be forgiven. He died for your sins to be forgiven. Surely you are likely to reject this idea. No shit. No shit, Sherlock. He died for you. Yeah, you'll reject this idea, but it is simply that whatever the sin or fault that was committed, it can be wiped clean because of Jesus' death. He sees my death as a sacrifice for all man's sins, and this, of course, was simply incompatible with Mark's account of my death and my last words. Surely, if one experiences an abandonment, you cannot turn that into one sacrifice. I find your remark important without fully understanding it. Could you explain it for me? Mark has it all. He says it simply. When one cries aloud, "Why hast thou abandoned me?" It announces that the former relation with God has been forsaken. Even the term carries a heavy weight, since it also includes within itself the idea that God should not have done so. To abandon everything means it has been rejected totally. In sacrificing, one gives up some treasure, but does so voluntarily to honor someone. Under the stress of abandonment, one experiences rejection and loneliness, while with sacrifice one experiences righteousness and a peace in one's soul. To see the folly of a decision that seemed to be the mark of to see the folly of a decision that seemed to have the mark of truth upon it, and base one's fate upon it, only to see you are wrong, that's what we Hellenes call a true tragedy. Settle down, old man. You're too quick to come to your conclusions. While it is true that the Gospels agree that the Transfiguration experience shows that I did identify with my false beliefs after an Enlightenment experience,
Don't be disgusting.
Don't be disgusting. While I did identify with the fate of Elijah, and took upon myself the role from childhood, role of the son of David, what you ignore is that the scene I'm described as crying aloud. You ignore is that scene where I am described as crying aloud. And in that sense, there is no realization I was wrong. Then it cannot be a tragedy, can it? For the hero must realize that he was wrong, and his whole way of being was wrong. What then? Now this is interesting. We've been stressing this a little bit, but here we're really putting emphasis, shining light on a way of being. What we've been doing by reading this text together as often as we can, by making all these notes on this lovely blackboard, by collecting these questions, by doing our best to promote openness and curiosity in others, by popping a question, recognizing people when they're in the destructive mode, the false knower of belief, and avoiding those people, and doing our best to share dialogue and reflection with friends over coffee. We've been developing a way of being. If we are to evolve, it has to be a way of being. If there's some learning we can take with us beyond this lifetime, it can't be a collection of physical things. It has to be a way of being. If we were to identify the cause of problems, MAGA, Zionism, Nazism, capitalism, all these things, they're ways of being. I am a MAGA. I like to wear my red hat and drive my loud truck loudly. That's a way of being. We're after the new way of being. If we want to help people, if we want to save our race, but most importantly, if we want to learn what we are here to learn and take with us after we depart this incarnation in time. Sure, a way of functioning, absolutely, but also a way of being. And in fact, this has been hinted at earlier that we would only have recognized the significance of because if we were carrying a question, that is, our question, what is this state of mind of being and understanding? Listen how it's the only time we've been given a description of it so far has been this. I'm going to reread it because it's awesome. This very way, this process of dialogue is the exercise of a cognitive faculty we call understanding. Our basic premise. Where's our... Over here. Understanding from belief. Cognitive functioning. The purpose, evolution, development, enlightenment of all and the whole of mankind. This dialogue that we are adding, also dialectic arrangement of our terms and diagrams too. This dialogue, dialectic, diagrams, dia, is the exercise of a cognitive faculty we call the understanding. And it culminates in the openness that is the shadow of the openness and freedom of a clear and pure mind functioning. Here are the clues. It's a shadow of something else, which is interesting. Openness and freedom, not bliss and wisdom, clarity and purity. Not eternity, but it does have the functioning of mind, capital M. Super puzzling. This philosophical way of proceeding through dialogue, the exercise of understanding, highlights its very mode of existing. So to answer this question, maybe we have to do it. And in that turning about, reflecting on ourselves and our state of being, our mode of existing as we do this all the time, that's an Usia movement. Reverting upon the intelligence. You're reflecting on yourself as you practice this, as a way of being. Thus, this way of understanding unites into a oneness, and in doing so, it returns to its natural source, the intelligence. As a result, what was before a scattered multiplicity without coherence and integrity becomes a set of ideas linked together with an inner coherence. Wow. That to grasp that inner coherence, maybe the dialectic structure, requires the intellect to be put into play. The moment of insight reveals its mode of existence. That's what we're after. What's it feel like? And it has a higher and more profound mode of existence since it lacks any image of oneself.
Wow.
We can say that it ushers in a dawning realization that the soul is not subjected to time.
Wow.
Thus, these kinds of experiences prepare the mind for a more penetrating insight into our mode of existence. So it seems like we've got to be doing it as a way of being, a mode of existence, while also reflecting on ourselves. What are we doing? What's it feel like? What's going on here? Is there an image of myself? Doesn't seem to be. Am I out of time? Am I eternal? These kinds of experiences prepare the mind for a more penetrating insight into our mode of existence, into its more profound way of functioning, and that it has a power capable of reaching to what is most divine. So we're developing a way of being while reflecting on ourselves, while also developing a power to reach what is most divine. Just by talking and understanding rationally. Just by letting go of all this crap, belief-based, savages, rejecting the new, loyal to the old, having internal conflict, having an addiction to sadism, doing harm and destruction, causing conflict and suffering, having no experience of the divine and no understanding, all sorts of stupid garbage to explain problems, not seeing the value of dreams like a jabroni, just by letting go of all that stuff that's objectively bad and feels bad and is crap. Just by rejecting that and practicing what's wonderful on this side, the side of understanding, becoming a sage, entering the human race, harmonizing with the cosmos, fully embracing rationality, openness, freedom, clarity, pureness, functioning beneficially, actually understanding the cause of problems. That just by doing that and talking with your friends in this cooler way, we are also developing a power that is capable of reaching into what is most divine. Wow. This activity the soul experiences is in time. Cheers. Let's have our coffee and drink it too. But in these states of mind, as we develop this as a way of being, we step out of that temporal passing phase of being and enter into the timelessness of reality. So unlike the penultimate vision of knowledge, we can also function in the highest way through these dialogues while ourselves being in reality, the timeless, the eternal. Isn't that interesting? You don't have to leave it. Ooh. So this is why it can be said that the soul's activity is in time as its existence is timeless or eternal. And since it is also recursive in respect to its own existence, you're reflecting on yourself, you're using the tools of mind to wonder about mind and have insight into mind, it's self-constituted. This idea of being self-constituted means all its functions and its mode of being and its power and activity are all within itself. So it stands independent of everything else. It doesn't matter what all the other jabronis are up to, what Trump is doing today, what Netanyahu was up to, doesn't matter. We can still keep this as a way of being because it's functioning and its mode of being, as well as its power to do so, is all within itself, independent of everything else. We can keep our cool, keeping the cool head of a philosopher king even when there is chaos all around us. That's the virtue of temperance, by the way. How interesting. So, and Socrates is saying, by the way, the story of the tragic hero is somebody who has been realizing that he has a way of being. Everything he's been doing reflects his way of being. And his way of being is wrong. Based upon something that had seemed to be true, had the mark or distorted shadow of truth, his decision based on that and a way of being based on that, that's the cause of tragedy. That's the tragic flaw. Whereas in the story of Jesus and Mark, no realization that a way of being was wrong. We're after a way of being. Philadelphia is a way of being. MAGA is a way of being. A Scientologist is a way of being. They're crappy ones, those are the ones I mentioned. Jabronis. But also we are here to develop from that into a way of being. Imagine that. What would that be like? It cannot be a tragedy, says Socrates, for the hero must realize that he was wrong and his whole way of being was wrong. Well, what then? Well, after the transfiguration in Mark, I am said to be acting out Elijah's role in the scriptures so that the scriptures can be fulfilled. Clearly, Socrates, that was the plan in my going to Jerusalem. Acting out Elijah's role so the scriptures can be fulfilled. That was the plan in going to Jerusalem with the donkey and all that, I think. What other conclusion can be drawn than the drama of Elijah ends in disaster? Did he have to play that out to see it, or could he have reflected on it? So Paul takes abandonment as a sacrifice, which of course is to deny that my mission was to act out the passion story that was linked to the image and teachings of David. So he was tied to this David guy. Paul had a vision. Hello, welcome, Golden, welcome, Golden, Golden. Are you having a golden day filled of the golden light of pure being. Paul had a vision that all mankind must become more inclusive Judaism. So Paul loves Judaism, but a more inclusive Judaism that brings together the circumcised and those circumcised in their spirit. All right. Paul wants to bring the circumcised. Heading to bed. Happy pure being to you all. See you later. On that note of circumcision, good night, Reeve. That's what Paul was up to. So remember, we've also got goals. Oh, have we put that on the list? How we respond to truth and rationality, a way of being, a way of functioning, but also goals. Move this down a little bit. So the same continuum of belief to understanding as a way of being or state of mind. We can also say there are goals. Within this continuum, human beings, when they come across something new, will have a goal. And use of what is new. Being new. So it sounds like those who are good people come across something new, accept it, drop the false beliefs from past, and use it to maybe benefit mankind. Whereas Paul wants to create a more inclusive Judaism, Jewishness, that includes the circumcised and the uncircumcised. So, weird way of putting it, Paul, but Paul was a weird guy who liked to murder people, which of course we can recognize as simply the playing out of belief. Lots of believers like to kill people. No one who loves understanding does. Funny that. So a goal and use of the new will be based on, hey, a development. Are you really want to be a believer? Therefore, you can only destroy as a mark of believing? Well, then you probably want to do crazy stuff with this new teaching. Build bombs to bomb non-believers. Whereas, if a good person comes across a new, rational understanding, probably want to do their best to share it. This channel, by the way, trying my best to share the new teaching, which is the old teaching, which is for everyone, it's just teaching, that we are, as human beings, to move from belief-based cognition to an understanding-based cognition and way of being that unites us with the eternal and timeless, while functioning in our most excellent way in time. And this union of being and functioning is itself a shadow of maybe an even higher state of being. A pure openness and freedom of the self that functions through pure mind. Meaning, is there three? Self, mind, and understanding. Transcending time, eternity of all time or out of time, and in time, most ideally. That would be a good reaction to reason and new truth. So, Paul is up to some wacky shit. As he is, always. Then, all of mankind, says Socrates, would become Pauline Jews, wouldn't they? Modern Christianity, the name for it, the more accurate name for modern Christianity is a Pauline Jew. Isn't that interesting? To ignore these things, says Jesus, means they never occurred, or that Thomas chose to ignore the very profound and startlingly, my God, startlingly important events. Okay. So the events that that Jesus' twin, Thomas the twin engine, what did he not talk about or not include? Arrest, trial, crucifixion, and resurrection. Now we know resurrection is nowhere. So we already know there's no resurrection. That was added to Mark hundreds of years later by the church. So we know there's no Easter. That's just made up nonsense. But why would he ignore these last things? The arrest, the trial, and the crucifixion. To ignore those things means that they never occurred, because they didn't happen. Maybe. Or that Thomas chose to ignore these very profound and startlingly important events. What would you say is more likely? Well, your question raises one we often reflect on. It deals with the nature of what is to be called likely and what is not. Big for us. The hypotheses we carry in our mighty sack of ifs are not knowledge, they are likely conclusions. If this is the case, then this might follow. So what's likely? When Sherlock Holmes puts the pieces of the puzzle together, for us the right opinions, or in midwifery the false opinions, when you put it together in the skill of understanding, you're left with what's likely. This is knowledge. This is beyond knowledge. Which would mean also in our midwifery, going through philosophical midwifery and dream analysis, you end up with a likely account of the meaning of your dreams and the likely account of what must be the false belief about reality and self and the false image of self that you don't need anymore. Which is why in midwifery you have to apply it. To test what's likely by getting back to your reading or approaching that goal you've dropped. It's likely. It's not truth. Well, it's not knowledge. It can be true. So, a question we often reflect on, it deals with the nature of what is to be called likely and what not. Thomas's book and Gospels present extremely different views of your work. How do you understand the differences? Well, obviously in writing his work, he singled out what he regarded as true about my ministry and what he thought did not happen. He ignored, and what he thought he did not happen, let's undo that. What he thought did not happen, he ignored. So we can say that with them all, can't we? So all of these people included what they thought was true and left out what they thought didn't happen. It could not be made clearer than in this way. Here we go. In what way? Thomas ignored Paul's claim that you are the only Son of God. I come to one conclusion if none of the Gnostic authors, nor Mark, assign you that title. So then, while the Jesus of Mark rejects the teachings of Paul, he still includes the core beliefs of the Abrahamic tradition. However, in Mark's account, did your last words mean that there were no saving God in that he rejected the model of sacrifice? Is the core belief of your tradition Abraham's willingness to do as God's commanded, so that was the beginning of the model of sacrifice? Think about this as a teaching. So fucking stupid. Just blindly do as you're told, even if it's harmful, even if it's human sacrifice. Why? Because of Abraham. Fucking Abraham. Isn't that the Nuremberg trials? Nazis don't kill people just because someone fucking told you to do it. Think for yourself. Oh no, but Abraham said. Fuck Abraham. But all of the religions are based on Abraham. Fuck them too. You're still going to go to trial for killing people in the Holocaust. Same too. Hey, Zionists, American Jews, Americans and Jewish Zionists. I don't give a shit if these terrible, terrible people claim to speak for God or Abraham. Fuck them. Don't kill Palestinians. You fuckers. Or anyone. Jesus Christ, it couldn't be more simple. But here we are finding the roots of that. Goes all the way back to Mark was also struggling with these stupid people justifying the most stupid bullshit because Abraham said so. Why? Well, here's a story of Abraham being told by God to sacrifice his son, and he did it when he was told, but then God was happy. Fuck that as a story. Jesus Christ. But Mark says there is no saving God. The story of Jesus. Why have you abandoned me? Yeah, good. He's rejecting this Pauline shit, Abrahamic shit. People can be so stupid as believers, but can be so wonderful as lovers of understanding. Keep that in mind. Find the open, curious people. Good hearts, good minds. In Mark's accounts, your last words mean there was no saving God, and in that, he rejected the model of sacrifice. Is the core belief of your tradition Abraham's willingness to do as his God commanded, and that was the beginning of the model of sacrifice? Imagine tracing all of human problems back down to a root cause. This fucking Abraham guy and this story. Now we can say the conditions for accepting this bullshit go even back further to the pathologos, but still, historically speaking. Isn't that interesting? I think it's interesting. Yes, it was, in a way, it was the beginning of the model of sacrifice, but in another way not. The model such believers act out can be easily perceived. Look closely at the roots of their teachings and you'll surface a problematic model. Oh, speaking of roots and causes. Good. This is exciting. How did the God of Abraham choose those who were to be his people? They are the ones following the model of Abraham. As Abraham so feared not obeying the command of his God, priest, king, Trump, parents, that he will be willing to sacrifice his first son. So too his followers obey his laws and become his people. Okay? Do as you're told, even if it's the most stupid fucking horseshit and you have to do what is most harmful to what you most love. Again, didn't fly as an excuse at the trials of Nuremberg for the Nazi people who murdered millions of people because daddy said so. As it won't fly when the MAGA people are to be held account for their terrible, sadistic violence against American citizens who happen to be brown or happen to not be a blind obeyer of Trump, a non-believer. The height of irrationality, the height of faith, to believe someone openly lying, openly a grifter and con artist, openly a huge sex offender, Donald Trump, to believe that is the highest mark of the irrationality of faith. Same thing with the Zionist Jews. Just because Netanyahu wants you to starve children to death and murder journalists and bomb hospitals doesn't mean you should. Oh no, but Abraham did it. Oh no, but fuck off with your Abraham shit, is what it would mean to be a rational person. But it is important to trace it back to its roots. Because, like it or not, it is being played out in our world. Thumbs up for understanding. So it's still important to understand where it came from, so we can address it rationally and fairly. So pleased was God with Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son that he formed a clan of worthy, fierce believers from Abraham's descendants. For these are called the chosen people. Oh, that's who they are. The fiercest zombies, the most loyal savages, the most destructive people to their own objects of love. These are the chosen people? Fuck me. I choose not to be chosen then. They were given the right to, oh my God, they were given the right, were they? To conquer and possess the land of others. Oh really? Like in Palestine? This is where it comes back to? This fucking story? That's what's being used to justify this horrible, inhumane torture and genocide happening right now? This? That we should have rejected from Mark? They have been told that their God will curse those who curse them. Okay? Do we hear that from the Zionist Jews right now on Instagram? Well, we fucking do. And they will bless those who he bless. We also hear this, by the way, the most sadistic people saying this shit. But what we are doing is understanding that as a way of being marked by belief. And what's the height of belief? To reject your own independent reflection and understanding in the face of the worst kind of instructions. This God became a servant of his people. Woof. What kind of a God is that? So this God announced that he would do unto others what others do unto them. Do the Jewish people have a history of genocide being done unto them? Are they doing it right now? Oh, are we understanding the cause of the conflict that needs to be understood and addressed fairly? Did I mention this book's a banger? 10 stars. This God becomes his people's ally and pours wrath upon their enemies. What a wonderful God, hurting people. This God becomes a people's God whose highest vision is that they become rulers of mankind. Have we perfectly understood the thinking and functioning of MAGA Zionists, the Jewish people supporting this shit? Whether they hide it at times or not, it's still there. And also, as we read earlier, even if they reject it, that's not the same as developing understanding and ousia to address the causes of this problem and also to gain knowledge and wisdom of the actual hierarchy of human principles that must be insisted. There's a reason why you don't kill people, and that's universally true for everyone. There's a reason why we need to harmon our functioning as souls and society with the universe, and it's understandable and knowable. So it's not good enough to say I'm not a Jew anymore. Do this. Reflect, ousia, on the cause of the problems and regain understanding that was rejected in your childhood by being a Jew, by being raised a Jew, by being in a culture of Jewishness. Same for Christians, same for MAGA, same for Mormons, same for every human being who has their own family religion. That's the pathologos. It's not a blame game, but we have to see the ethical and moral imperative and the need for everyone as a civic duty to go through this process of self-reflection, ousia, and understanding, logos. To move from savages to sages, zombies to humans, causing caveman thinking, causing inevitable destruction and extinction, to living in harmony with the cosmos. Plus, it's fun. This book is a banger. We're reading what's fun anyway. In other words,
where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder?
it's joyous and whimsical. And meaningful. Best book. 10 out of 10. So, their God becomes the people's God whose highest vision is that they become rulers. Well, my God says that I should be the best, and I get to hurt everyone else and do what others did to me and be a bully like I was bullied, says Elon Musk, says Peter Thiel, says all these fascists and billionaires. I think that I should be the king and God says so, and you have to do what I say. All the way back to Abraham. And the people who are most stupid and violent and fucked in the head become the chosen people. Wow. The most... Oh God, it makes me so mad. Those willing to sacrifice his son, so too formed a clan of worthy, fierce believers from Abraham's descendants, and these were the chosen people. God damn. Then they will act out what is not their will, but only what is consistent with Abraham's fearful legacy from his wrathful God. Yes, we're zombies. The fucking Zionists and the MAGA Christians, they're all zombies. They can't think. They all do fall into line in the worst possible fucking ways. They have no will. They don't act out their will. What they act out is not their will. They're zombies. Only what is consistent with Abraham's fearful legacy from his wrathful God. Killing everyone you don't like, taking all their shit. The worst possible functioning a human being or any animal can be. This isn't just the worst of humanity, it's worst of fucking species. Animals don't do this. Form these cults and clans based on these lies about what God is and wants. To act out vengeance and to demand the most stupid things. Sacrifice your son. Why? Because shut up. That's why. Oh, okay. All right. I want you and my team. Like the army. I want people who don't think. Like, as it said, you can't be too intelligent and become different sorts of jobs like police and stuff. You can't be too intelligent and too thoughtful for yourself. So you can be manipulated to act against your own interests and the interests of your fellow fucking man. So you can be manipulated to act against your fucking soul and cause the extinction of our whole species. That's our tradition. This is the Abrahamic thing. Muslims, Jews, Christians have this as their root. They're not a minority. Anyway, bang a book. So they're not doing their own will, following their own self-goals to their own self-excellence as the way of being of understanding. Only what is consistent with Abraham's fearful legacy of his wrathful God. Jesus comes in. It is likely that here you will see a loss of freedom. Yeah, no shit. Yes, we do see a loss of freedom. But I will see conformity to divine rule. Wow. Okay, so up until now, the character of Jesus in the text has been open and curious and following reason and, seeing the significance of understanding over belief in every level. In understanding our false beliefs to remove problems, in understanding divine light to reach it, to understanding it so you don't play out the pathetic story of Mark's Jesus, and for understanding from that state to know thyself, true excellence. He even mentioned dreams a couple of times. Again, everyone in his lineage hasn't really understood understanding, hasn't really understood knowledge or divine luminosity, and hasn't really understood the self, and hasn't understood dreams, and no one has given an understanding of problems. But at least some of them, the Gnostics, have pointed to what's important without understanding it themselves. Here seems to be a turning point in the text, and we are on page 92. Let's see how many pages there is. End. 236. Okay. I was wondering if this was going to be halfway, or maybe it's the golden mean. Are we... Actually, I'm going to pause and do some math. So, think about how the exact problems being played out in 2025 is a holdover from this Abraham guy. When did he live? Let's look it up. When did Abraham live? '22nd and earliest 21st centuries BCE. Okay, what's that mean? Huh? Abraham. What? That's not helpful. Okay, here we go. 2170 BCE. So 4,000 years about. Is that right? When was Abraham born? Okay, 2166 or 2056. All right, okay, so let's say about 2,000 years before BC. So imagine this. The problems we're playing out today is because human beings have been holding on to some bullshit belief from some guy 4,000 years ago. All this stuff. MAGA, Christians, Bush, imperialism, capitalism, Zionism, the genocides, all over the fucking world. We get to do it because God says so. We are the chosen people. We have the right to conquer and possess land of others. We will curse anyone who curses us, and we'll bless people who give us money and arms. Because we are the chosen people. I don't care that the Nazis tried to genocide us. We're going to genocide the others. Do unto others what we had done unto us. Fucking baby brain, bullshit, mush brain, zombie, disgusting stuff. The worst possible kind of functioning any animal can do. We are the absolute fucking worst. But look at how well we can hold on to an idea. It's a shit one from this Abraham guy. For 4,000 years we held on to this idea. Nurturing us in the worst kind of vice of any species. Animals don't do this. And no species that can survive can do this for any longer than we've been doing it. Imagine that. How not only how terrible we are, but how fucking fantastic we are as students. We are the best fucking students to hold on to what's against all evidence, all reason, all kindness within our soul, all fucking sense. You don't genocide your children. You don't like it when you're genocided. Then why the fuck will you think there's anything good to genociding anyone else? To starve? Hey, billionaires don't like being hungry. Why the fuck would they starve their own people? Take away student lunches and Meals on Wheels and hoard all the fucking wealth. You have to reject everything in your perception, in your brain, in your heart, in your soul, and your mind to be a student to this terrible fucking teacher of Abraham. But we did it. You have to ignore our own extinction. The need for, hey, wouldn't it be great if we had clean air and we didn't have microplastics in our blood and we had a clean planet? And we lived in a fucking wonderful utopia without any need for work or suffering or sacrificing our life for survival? Yes! No shit, it would be great. Then why aren't we fucking doing it? Because we are wonderful students to a terrible teacher named Abraham. All of the stuff about, evolution, we get smarter. That's used selectively by scholars in academia to dismiss Socrates. Socrates didn't have the internet, so how can his be the best philosophy? I like the moderns. Give me a little bit of Nietzsche and a little bit of Hegel and some Adam Smith mixed in there for some nice capitalist profit. Bullshit. If it's true, it's true. That's from 2,000 years ago? 2.5? We don't apply that to Abraham. All the different versions of Jewishness, Muslimness, and Christianity out there. And all the different variations and cults and sects many of which have been warring with each other for hundreds of years or longer. We don't apply that mentality. Well, Jesus, what about evolution? Abraham didn't have the internet. This is the double-edged sword of humanity. Imagine if it was true though. Imagine if it was just logos. The actual care, the actual reasoning, the actual thing. You can actually fix your toaster if you understand it. You can actually care for your children if you understand them. You can actually solve gun violence if you understand it. You can actually have a great time playing basketball if you understand the rules. It's all understanding. It's obvious. Imagine if the logos and not the pathologos was our teaching. That's the positive takeaway from this. We are the most fantastic students to the worst possible fucking teacher, Abraham. Reflected in our own childhood, with our own individual pathologos, fantastic students and loyalty to our own king priests of the house, our parents. But if only we learnt to love understanding as a way of being, we could hold true to that tradition for 4,000 years. Imagine what our race can do in 4,000 years of loving understanding. Not just a utopia, not just a freedom from all human sufferings, and rationally addressing every single problem so we can all grow. But as we explore the cosmos together, we wouldn't be shaken from our, not just belief, but our understanding in understanding. Alien species will come along and try and convince us to their version of Abraham.
No, we are the chosen aliens. Join with us and we will bless you as you bless us.
No. Have you seen our species? We were so fiercely loyal to this dude who was a scumbag, a complete piece of garbage, Abraham. You think we're going to give up our loyalty to what solved those problems? Just because some alien is offering us alien money or alien women's or whatever the fuck?
We will give you the interdimensional space travel through black hole technology. If only you say the green aliens are the superior race to the blue aliens, and we get to genocide them.
No fucking way. Have you met us? We're humans. We can be fiercely loyal to the truth, to the way of being, necessary for our evolution, necessary for our spiritual enlightenment, necessary to fulfill our purpose, our destiny, our true destiny here on earth, the purpose of all living beings. So no, I don't think we're going to be swayed, which is also the teaching of Socrates in the Phaedo. As he was showing that learning is a remembering of the divine light of pure being that we had an experience of before birth, as he was showing people that, they were agreeing with him. He said, hey, don't just agree with me, pal. Because someone can just come along and throw some Abrahamic shit at you and it will stick because that's your upbringing. And you'll be knocked off the truth into belief. And then you'll learn to fear and doubt the truth because you didn't nail it down with understanding. Understand it. Once we understand it, and understand this, the cause of 2025's problems, fierce loyalty to this Abraham douchebag, imagine what we could do. Something to think about. So, we are doing a little math equation. Now, halfway through the text, it would be, this is the book, the length. Up a bit. Book length. Halfway would be 115, 16, 17, 18. Page 118 would be halfway. The golden ratio. Hey, speaking of golden's in the chat today. Golden ratio is, let me just make sure I've got the number right. What is the golden ratio? Up. 61.8. Okay. 61.8%. And we are curious about this because this might be the mathematical understanding of the logos. 61.8%. So bring out the calc time. Okay, let's 100 take away 61.8 is 38.2 is the others. I could have worked that out myself. Or 38.2. So these are the two possible divisions that you could be making in the text if you were to use the golden ratio. This is a hypothesis. It might not be anything. So 236 pages times 0.382, 90.1. So half would be page 118. And the golden ratio would be page 90 or 236 times 0.618, page 145 or 146. Which one was it closest to? 146. So I have a hypothesis that maybe something significant might be happening at around page 118 at halfway, around page 90, or around page 146 to get a more accurate division. We'd have to count each line. Some pages have more in it and stuff, but as a rough estimate, somewhere around 90 or somewhere around 146. We are on the top of page 92. So maybe my hypothesis, my feeling that this seems to be a bit of a change in Jesus' functioning now. It's likely you will see that as loss of freedom, but I see it as a conformity to divine rule. To be willing to stay within those limits is to be a child of God. So now he is flipping it on his head. He's been open to understanding up until now. Now he seems to be acting like a bit of a jerk. Of course, it's Jesus. He's in the Abrahamic tradition. So it's to be expected. And not only Jesus, so many fucking people act in such terrible, terrible ways conforming to these teachings of Abraham. So it's not unusual. It's more common than not. But it's also happening at around page 90. So maybe it's significant. To be willing to stay within the limitations, limits, there's our logos word, Believers have to accept a limit. Only Mormon texts, only Mormon marriage, only Mormon horseshit. Don't think for yourself. No enlightenment for you. Whoops. Okay, I'm back. So, at around the golden ratio point of the text, we have Jesus saying, "It is likely that you'll see it as a loss of freedom, but I see it as conformity to divine rule." And we're just speculating what happens if human beings actually gain not belief but understanding of the divine principles of reality, or the logos. Conformity to that, aligning our souls with reality and our species with reality, what could we achieve? Not just a utopia, but maybe ambassadors to the cosmos. And if we can be blindly loyal to what's objectively terrible and wrong in all possible ways, again, Nazi Nuremberg trials didn't accept this as an excuse. I was just doing what I was told. Didn't fly then. Why does it fly with Abraham? To be willing to stay within is to be a child of God. Terrible thing to say, Jesus. Boo. We say to you,
You are a fantastic moron.
soundboard randomizer for a win. Well, they'll win. Let's keep reading. Socrates. I see then that in accepting the creed, it imposes limits on what can be questioned. One pays. Interesting. If you accept the creed, and why's my highlighter being weird? Hang on. What? Not that. Look at this. What we want? This one? Woof. No. Undo. Ah, it's not undoing. Woof. This one? No, not that either. This one? Yes, but also no. I'm not... Okay. It imposes limits on what can be questioned. One pays a bitter price for believing truth that can be reached by sanctifying the shadows in the cave of belief. Now that puts it all together. Now, those familiar with the Plato's cave analogy, it's the allegory of the cave and the upper world. We are born chained to the back of a cave, looking at the shadows, physical perceptions, images, reflections of childhood images and things. But the allegory is to say, look, our job is to turn away from the shackles of such ignorance and leave the cave, and then there's also a further development once you're in the real world. Not just leaving it, there's also development through the real world to reach the sun itself, the highest object in the real world. By saying, hey, that thing, this might sound good if you say, but to be conforming to divine rule is actually makes you a child of God. Might sound right, but hang on a second. Bringing in the cave analogy, if you think truth is sanctifying the fucking shadows on the back wall of the cave, opinions from others in the physical world, You, my friend, are fucked in the head. He didn't say it that way. The text says one pays a bitter price for thinking truth can be reached by sanctifying. Oh, you know those shadows on the wall of the cave? They're the best things ever. They're the best shadows. Stories about Abraham. I love those stories about Abraham. That's the best. They're not even physical shadows. They're not even sense perceptions. They're the blind beliefs and opinions and imitations from parental figures that you get when you are in the physical world. So it's even further removed from reality. So, very awesome thing to say by Socrates in response to something that might sound appealing. To be willing to stay within the limits of divine rule is to be a child of God. Might sound good until you say, hey, by the way, have you heard the cave? That's not truth, son. You are just sanctifying, making as universal the highest, the shadows on the cave of fucking belief. It's the worst you can do. So, banger response in a banger book. And by the way, how meaningful is this? The most meaningful book I've ever read. It applies directly to what's happening in our world, but also the kinds of responses you have for people. Oh no, genociding the Palestinians is God's will. We're the chosen people. Hey, pal, sanctifying the shadows on the cave of goddamn belief, you will pay a dear price for. That ain't truth, pal, says Socrates. So, super meaningful, super significant. In the world and to ourselves. What we have to ask ourselves, when are we like Netanyahu? When do we, or Trump, or Zionists, or Jews, or Christians, or Muslims? When do we say, oh, the opinions I got from my mummy and daddy are the sanctified as truth. That's what true is. We all do. Again, it's not a blame game, it's an understanding game. Accepting the creed impose a limit on what can be questioned. Why would you do that, you idiot? One pays a bitter price for believing truth can be reached by sanctifying the shadows on the cave of belief. Doing so is to celebrate blindness as if it were sight. Boom. Owned. Put that on a stuffy. Put that on an Instagram reel. That is to celebrate blindness as if it was sight. Thus, in this way, they sacrifice any meaningful explorations of the elements of theology or metaphysics. Putting limits on the mind is to sacrifice the mind. That's what you're sacrificing, son. The mind. The most important thing, the cause of reality, inside itself, what makes you rational. You sacrifice your own fucking mind for this shit. Why? Because Abraham said so? Come on. If this is common to the Abrahamic religions, then they are in conflict with understanding, reason, and use of the intellect and the mind. Boom. Owned. Get wrecked, jabroni. All Abrahamic religions, therefore, are in conflict with understanding, reason, and the use of the intellect and mind. Say it again for the people in the back. All of the Abrahamic religions, being part of this fucking stupid tradition going back to Abraham himself, and who are the people chosen, the biggest douchebags and morons, all Abrahamic religions are in conflict with understanding. You know, the thing that solves problems and makes us better? Reason, the thing that makes us rational, and the use of the intellect or mind. The most important thing that we can exercise? All Abrahamic religions, even yours, even your parents, even that guy that you like who does the skateboarding and preaches on Sunday. The reduction of God to serve and function as a servant from his people. Nope, this is Socrates. I should do the voice. The reduction of God to serve and function as a servant for his people is no longer to have a God. Get wrecked. Notice then that Marx Jesus hoped to force God's hand. Wow, now we're getting insight into the story. And save him from the cross. And in doing so, his followers would become another people, another tribe of chosen people. See how I manipulated God's hand? Paul's theme, save this ideal by the belief in your resurrection. So, Paul paints Jesus trying to force God's hand and make him a slave to his will. What kind of a God is that? And Paul liked that a lot. Someone who created the church based on faith and belief, the thing that makes us savages. Funny that Paul would like that idea. But what is this but the sacrifice of the fullest scope of the mind for membership in a clan that's protected by God? Wow. What is this but the sacrifice of the full scope of the mind for membership in a clan protected by God? What garbage. Brilliant. Owned with a P. Pwned. I see that you use the idea of limit frequently, Socrates. So do we, because we're looking for the structure of understanding. What are the parts of understanding, and how do we use them together artfully to reach a whole? We want that skill, remember? Either in solving problems or reaching excellence, there is a skill involved that we're learning as we go. How do we arrange our... Oops. We have questions. We read the book. We read a text like this, which is a banger. Collect the right opinions. But also we need some sort of skill to organize them. So that's why we're looking at not only what he's saying, but also the structure behind the thinking of Socrates. And that skill is the use of understanding, which seems to have whole, part, same, different, limit and unlimit. He's saying, hey, if you accept a limit to the mind, you are sacrificing the full scope of the mind for membership in this bullshit clan that's based on garbage, should have been thrown away with Mark because it doesn't work. Equally so, there is a skill involved in solving problems. So people within the tradition of Jesus don't have that understanding, it seems. So Thomas the Twin Engine, who says, oh, problems are caused by sexual desire, sexual activity. Or forgetfulness, even in Plato. Meaning, they lack the skill of how to address the false opinions that cause our problems, that keep us sanctifying the false beliefs as if they were the highest, or truth. To overcome that ignorance requires a skill. Meaning, we have recognized the use of limit and unlimit in reflection and dialogue, because we want to develop that skill. We want to, what's the question? How do we participate. We want to participate or unify with intelligence itself. So, Jesus is beginning to see, maybe. I see that you use the idea of limit frequently, Socrates. Clearly you are saying, are you not, that while those who become a follower of Abraham gain an identity and power, they do it at the cost of the use of the higher functions of the mind. You call that a necessary limit to their being. This is quite a claim. How do you intend to defend it? If you have reasons, I would like to hear them. True it is, because it will take several steps in realize the grounds for my making that claim. Yeah, maybe you get some power to hurt people. Shit power, by the way. And you gained an identity with the biggest morons of all human history, Abraham, children of Abraham. But you sacrifice the higher functions of the mind necessarily? Yeah, I mean, we can see it. Jesus can't yet. That's okay. By breaking it down for Jesus to see, we can gain a better grasp of it ourselves, which will be neat. It will take several steps in realize the grounds for my making that claim. I would appreciate it if you were to take me through the steps, Socrates. And so would we. So there's a cliffhanger for next time. What are the steps of reasoning Socrates went through to identify, understand, and see immediately, clearly, straight away? Oh, that's what you are. Of all of the groups of functioning that human beings can have, that's what you are. Oh yeah, obvious. Not obvious to us yet, not obvious to Jesus yet. What are the steps of reasoning that we will have to go through to see clearly as Socrates does? That all of these see something clearly that a lot of people in our world don't see clearly yet. So maybe we can share it with them over coffee and benefit our fellow man. Maybe bring our species from the brink of extinction back to something good. That is, why is it that while they claim to be getting power, we can question what kind of power that is, power to hurt people, and a clan identity, is that worth identifying with? I'm a Jew, I'm a Christian, I'm a Mormon. Is it worth it? Considering you necessarily have to sacrifice the higher functions of the mind. Particularly, you are at war with understanding, reason, and the use of the mind or intellect. Believers are at war with fucking intelligence itself. And those with the brain can look at the world and go, oh yeah, no shit. But how can we break it down so that even the most brainwashed child of Abraham can see it? Because it's not a blame game, but to some level, we all have a belief from childhood or religion that we sanctify in some way, blocking us from our evolution from belief-based cognition to understanding as a function and way of being. And everything we've seen so far seems to be within that spectrum or continuum. The worst people, the most sadistic people, the most ignorant people, believers. The best people, they love understanding. The most helpful, they share understanding. We've even nailed it down as the skill. The skill needed to help people solve problems, midwifery, and the skill of dianoia, artful progression through dialogues, diagrams, and dialectic. That's the skill. That's understanding. And that is what they don't like and they are at war with, to be a member of the shittiest team in town. Hey, perhaps even in our whole cosmos. But if we can be so fiercely loyal to what is objectively terrible and against the mind, reason, care, benefit, creation, helping people, objectively harmful in every possible way, yet we can be blindly loyal to it, imagine what we can do as a people, as a soul, and as a species if we replaced that with what should be sitting in the throne, get rid of the pretender to the throne, and put in it a love of understanding. Phila dianoia. Love and logos. What kind of a world, what kind of a person, and what kind of relationships could we have if that was our way of being? Something to wonder about. Until next time. Feel free to join on YouTube and Twitch. Join the Discord, there's a link below, and you'll get a notification when we go live. If you want to donate to the channel, there's a Buy Me a Coffee link below, and there's a link to the text you can download for free on PDF if you want to. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.